Hello, welcome to the Executive Bite. My name is Kyle Rowland. Today we're going to talk about exploratory testing. So over the last couple of decades, the way we validate our software has gotten more and more automated. We've even developed these techniques called test-driven development, where we are driving our production code as we're writing it. We're driving it with writing of tests. And so one of the interesting concepts that pops up throughout this is how much of our testing, how much of our validation should be done automatically. Certainly we've had years and years of manual testing, so certainly there's space for human beings, or not just space, but a need for human beings to actually validate the stuff we build by hand. And the reality is, if we can describe something clear enough to write code for it, we can describe something clear enough to write test code for it. It's basically the same activity. It's sort of inverse, but it's the same thing. And so when the question arises, what should we be automating? The answer is basically everything in terms of our testing automation, all the way from the feature down to the smallest unit. So as this conversation arises, often there's a question about, well, isn't there a creative aspect to testing? Isn't there an aspect where we're discovering and unpacking and checking out, things where we haven't thought about it in the future? And I would suggest that isn't actually testing. That's really product vision. It's thinking about what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. For example, if you're finding an edge case that you simply hadn't considered before, which is what we would generally call exploratory testing, then really you haven't defined the product out to that level, and that's the activity that you're participating in at the time that you do that. And that's not so much a testing activity as it is a product vision, product management sort of thing to do. And so this may seem like a little bit of a quibble. Kyle, you're getting into semantics. This is, the fact is the work needs to be done. Who cares what we call it? Well, it actually is a little bit important on two fronts. And actually, I would say it's a lot important on two fronts. The first is it will make a difference in what kind of people, what kind of skill set we put this work in front of. The manual testers, that sort of frame, if these are the folks that are doing this, they bring a very technical, very almost a myopic view towards looking at the specific edge case, when in reality it should be more like the product management type of people, product visionaries, the kind of people that think about how are we best serving the customer. And now you might push back and say, well, everybody's supposed to think this way. Yeah, this is true generally. But if we're really slicing down between QAs or testers and product managers, the reason we're doing that is because the latter are focused much more on how we're solving a human problem. Now, the second reason that it's important is that calling something testing implies that there's a right and a wrong answer, which creates a cudgel that can be used in conversation and elaboration about a particular thing that just shouldn't be there. It's already there too much in a lot of our conversations, but this is the right way to do it. Well, you don't know that. And if you start from the idea that you think that you found something broken and thus it needs to be fixed, you put a box around the whole thinking of the whole organization. So for example, as an exploratory tester, I might come in and find out, hey, our response rate on our website is 300 milliseconds. It should be 250 milliseconds. Well, okay, that's an interesting thing that I've discovered, but my assumption about the response speed of a web page is not necessarily based on anything, and I've already made a conclusion that it absolutely is something that is broken, quote unquote broken. Now, that should be viewed in the larger product context where whatever the number is, there is some thinking about in terms of this particular page or that particular page in the context of the problem that we're solving for a human being. That speed, whatever it is, might actually be perfectly fine and not worthy of the energy that we would put into optimizing to make it yet faster. So in those two ways, it really kind of does make a difference whether we call it testing or product management. And we should really be careful as we're thinking about that. So again, my model is when it comes to automated testing, you can and should automate everything that you've built. Is there a space for manual testing? I would say there's a space for manual, very detailed product management to evaluate how features are working throughout the course of the life cycle of the product, whether that's right when the features are delivered or on an ongoing basis to check, hey, did we miss anything? Is there anything we should improve? So thanks for joining. This is the Executive Bite. My name is Kyle Rowland. Have a good day.